Joining me now, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor, Charlie Hurt. Mr. Hurt, good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Dagan, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Does this come to you came out with this op-ed. I just want to get right to this. There was an op-ed this week battling semantics down in Washington, battling semantics at the border, and you point out the frustrations of so many people in this country. We'll support a fence. We know we want a wall. And the difference in the amount of money that we're talking about, I know it's a few $1 billion, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really a drop in the bucket based on what the U.S. government spends every year.
Oh, no, absolutely. And to hear all these people come out and clamor about the need to be so frugal with, our spending and all this kind of stuff after they spend like drunken sailors for however long, it's incredible. It's sort of hard to believe anything that they're saying. But it is. It has become this sort of battle over semantics. And the fact that Donald Trump insists upon calling it a wall because he has a real talent for making things visual and describing. That's why he's very good at sort of capturing people's imagination. He calls it a wall. Of course, all these Democrats, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, all of them, Chuck Schumer, voted for a fence back in 2006. But I think the real semantics here isn't necessarily over what you call the wall or the fence or the steel slats or whatever. The word that so many people, so many Democrats on Capitol Hill are hung up on is the word Trump. They just don't want to give Donald Trump anything. But if you step back, the big picture here is Donald Trump is on the right side of a debate that cuts through. It cuts across Democrats and Republicans alike. A majority of them want a secure border on the South. They're appalled at the pictures of these people streaming over the border, and of course they're heartbroken when children die trying to cross a very, very dangerous border because they were brought there not of their own volition but by adults, irresponsible, reckless adults who are trying to illegally get into the country. And the only way to fix that is to make it so that there isn't the draw there of successfully getting across the border in the first place.
Charlie, how does this end, though? Is it really, even if President Trump, because the Democrats feel like President Trump owns this shutdown, because in that meeting with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer where they wouldn't look at him, Chuck Schumer's like staring at the carpet, Nancy Pelosi's staring at the cameras. They wouldn't look at him. And he said, I am proud to shut down the government for border security. So they feel like this is a political win. They don't need to give anything. Even if he said, call it a wall, whatever, give me the $5 billion, would that end the shutdown?
Well, two things. One is I think these shutdowns are always kind of embarrassing for the federal government because whenever they shut down, regular Americans look around and but for what they read in the newspaper every day, they wouldn't know the federal government had shut down. It had, they spend all of this money and it has very little impact on their day-to-day lives. The second thing is, how does it end? I think the reason that Donald Trump said, I'll own this shutdown in order to get border security only points up the fact that he likes the big picture optics of being on the side of border security in this debate. How does it end? I suspect, we've gone from a wall is immoral, it's hateful, it's all these things.
Immoral is the word that Nancy Pelosi used, immoral.
Yeah. We've gone from that to, okay, well, maybe we'll, maybe if the number is low enough. So, if they're talking about a low number, I can't help but think that they're going to there's going to be some movement on that, and we'll get some figure somewhere in the middle, but somewhere between $5 billion and $1 billion, or $5 billion and zero, and both sides will walk away and claim a victory. But the truth of the matter is, if Donald Trump gets anywhere near $5 billion for his wall for right now, I think that's a victory for him. Well, and he was on the right side of the issue.
Mattie, I want to get you in here. I just want to point out, because Lindsey Graham, after his meeting with President Trump yesterday, told reporters that he floated the idea to President Trump. It would couple more than $5 billion in funding for border security, including a wall with work permits for the undocumented immigrants who came to the U.S. as children, known as the Dreamers. So that was his idea. He said President Trump didn't commit, but I think he was open-minded, was Senator Graham's reaction.
Well, Washington, D.C. looks very different in 2 days. Nancy Pelosi becomes Speaker of the House, and then she has to rule her unruly caucus. So we don't know what victory looks like. To Charlie's point earlier, we don't know what victory looks like for Democrats in this scenario, because then now they accept part ownership of this government shutdown. If they can't reopen the government on terms that they think are favorable to their base, they have to go back to the president and try to explain how they want to cut a deal with him now after, at this point point, 11 days of refusing to budge an inch. So I think that really the specter hanging over Nancy Pelosi is very, very difficult heading into these next few days. She still doesn't have she's a very skilled politician, but she still has a very different caucus to understand going into this new year, and it looks very different from it than it has in years past. Years past, of course, she has passed security supplementals that are bigger than any other security spending bill that we've seen. So returning back to the rule of Speaker Pelosi will be a very interesting question for her with the new membership of this caucus.
Well, I'll point this out, Charlie, as much as I hate the tariffs, and I think that it's, hurting the few, hurting the many to help the few in terms of just the steel and aluminum tariffs, but we've brought in more than $5 billion in tariff revenue in the last year. So the Democrats are going to be up in arms about that. They should, it helped the steelworkers union, and they could pay for increased border wall funding, or border security fence funding. With that.
Yeah, it is. It's really quite interesting. And Lindsey Graham, of course, has developed into sort of one of the most astute Trump whisperers in Congress, and Trump is wise to use him in that role. And of course, the important thing here is it's far more than just a physical barrier at the border. It is about interior enforcement. It is about enforcing the laws, from the inside. So all that, there are a lot of working parts here. But of course, Nancy Pelosi's biggest problem is she's not even Speaker yet officially, and she's got, as you point out, a very unruly caucus. She's got, talk about herding cats. She's got a wild bunch of cats, and they're going to be dragging her farther and farther to the left. Not only in the first couple of days when they're negotiating with Trump on the wall, but for the next 2 years, it's going to be a nice. She is one person I would not want to be in Washington for the next 2 years.
Dogs or cats or cute little goats that hop. Politicians, I don't care. They all make my head hurt.
Yeah.
They all
you and everybody else.
All of this makes my head hurt, because at the end of the day, what are you doing for the American people? A whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're still paying the bill, so have fun.
Right, exactly. You know what? When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, Congress people shouldn't get paid during the shutdown, she's there for a reason.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Well, I'll leave it at that. Charlie Hurt, a very, very happy New Year to you.
You too. Thanks, Dagan.
My fellow Virginian. I don't envy
That's
you
right.
living in D.C., though.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yes, thank you. It's a very clean city. Coming up, Game On, Verizon and Disney making a deal to avoid a blackout before more College Bowl action. Plus, Putin laces up the Russian